Welcome back to another episode of Simple Roots TV. I'm so glad you're here. This is part 2 in a 2-part series talking about the difference between men and women's hormones and what the number one culprit that you could change to fix your hormones and regulate them for better health. Yesterday we learned that men's hormones are greatly affected by sugar. Yes, sugar is the main culprit affecting their hormones and the one thing that they should be concerned about fixing in their diet. Now, women, it's a little bit different story. So while we talked about yesterday how men's hormones function independently of cortisol, women's are directly correlated to the release of cortisol in the body. So while men function off of testosterone, we function off more of an estrogen-progesterone swing. And we know that progesterone is directly impacted by the level of cortisol, which we know cortisol is a stress hormone. So if you can sum all this up, the number one culprit affecting women's hormones today is stress. Now, that's really a vague term. In fact, we could kind of say that about men as well because sugar is a huge stressor on the body. But men tend to handle just life stress and work stress and exercise stress much better than a female. In fact, that can actually help them, where it really will harm our hormones. So if you're suffering, if you have an inability to lose weight and you have all these hormonal symptoms going on, I think we have to stop and look at what is stressing our body. Now, like I said, there could be a ton of things stressing you. I mean, it could be relationship stress, kids stress, work stress. It could be money stress. It could be food stress, even food sensitivities. Maybe you have an underlying virus in your body or a bacteria. There are lots and lots and lots of things that can stress us out. It's really just uncovering, okay, what it is that is the root stress in our life. And how can we work to eliminate that? And if not eliminate it, how can we work in our overall life to reduce the amount of stress on our bodies? So there are a few things that I want to talk about here. In fact, there's 5 main things that I think that we could do as women to help regulate our stress. One is to dig into your life, to really uncover what is happening. And I think this takes slowing down, stepping back, and really visualizing your life. What do you do on a daily basis? Like, how do you feel when you wake up in the morning? How do you feel at night? Just really take in a time to evaluate your life and start learning to listen to yourself. This is really a crazy principle for women to get, but being in tune to their own body's signals. I mean, we have so much noise in the world and we have so many people's needs to meet. I really understand that. This morning, I had like 3 little girls trying to bark orders at me and needing things and needing help getting dressed. And meanwhile, I was hungry and I was trying to eat my breakfast and I was just shoveling it in my mouth and it was just a disaster. And I had to stop and listen, like, is now the best time to be eating? Could we work on our nightly routine so that there's not as much stress happening in the morning? I mean, there's all sorts of things that we can do. But if we don't step back and evaluate what's going on, it's hard to ever get out of that vicious cycle. So number 1 is step back and understand what is going on. Number 2 is to evaluate your sleep patterns, because sleep is the number one stressor of all human beings, and most women tend to need a little bit more sleep than men, and sleep has a lot of power in reducing the stress load on our body. And so if you're not sleeping well, your hormones are always going to be out of whack. So evaluate, how are you sleeping? Are there things that you could do to get deeper sleep, which we're gonna talk more about sleep in upcoming podcasts and videos right here on Simple Roots TV. So that's number 2. Number 3 is to understand your cycle. Now, whether you're menopausal or not, I think all women will have some sort of a cycle they're on. Yes, even menopausal women can start to recognize that there is some sort of a swing to it, even if you're not menstruating anymore. But understanding your cycle is really, really critical because there are times during the month when women can handle more stress. When our progesterone levels are lower and our body has more estrogen, we are naturally more inclined to have more energy and just handle exercise stress and work stress and be more creative and have a little more spunk to our step. Now, as our cycle continues and we get into the menstruation phase, that's when we can see our body really pull back and need more rest. You can often see this in more cravings, more drive to eat foods, and just more exhaustion in general. Sometimes women pull away and they don't even want to be in public as much or socialize as much. This is a really common thing that happens. Now, the critical thing with menstruation and knowing your cycle, kind of quote unquote cycle syncing, which I always promote, is that once you know where you are in your cycle, you can start to understand when there are times your body can handle more stress and kind of channel those activities that you need to do in your life in those phases of your cycle. On the other hand, as your cycle progresses and you start menstruating, maybe that's a good time to take a relaxer, to step back and just kind of rest for a while. And I know that this is really common when it comes to exercise. We see women who push themselves all throughout their cycle, every day, working out hard, but sometimes exercise can be a huge culprit in why women can't lose weight. I know it sounds contradictory, but the truth is that exercise can be a stress, especially if women are doing it wrong. So if you're not losing weight and you exercise all the time and you're wondering, what in the world am I doing wrong? Maybe that is your stressor, and you need to take some moments to step back and understand, how does your cycle work, and when are the moments when I can exercise hard and intensely, and when maybe do I need to take a step back, just go on walks or practice yoga or do something a little less intense. So that's number 3, is to get into cycle syncing, which I have a whole blog post all about cycle syncing. But moving on, number 4 is to create routines in your life. Now, I'm a big person on routines because when we look at the health world, it can be really overwhelming. There are so many things that we should be doing, and how do we fit it all in and do this, not that. Yet I have this whole family that I have to take care of and all this work stuff that I need to do. And there's just so many pressures of life on women. And we know that those pressures are creating excess stress. But one thing that I'd like to do is help people create routines. And a routine is simply like habit, rather than just doing one thing well, right? It's a routine, so it takes over your morning, and you just have this mass, and you just have a number of different things that you do, but it all becomes habitual. So rather than just looking at one thing and trying to do that well, you kind of overtake a time period and do that time period well. So for instance, creating a morning routine has really helped me to accomplish things in the morning and yet rest and feel relaxed and take care of myself. Because as they say, how you start your day is often how you end it. So I like people to take into account their morning routine. So rather than waking up or hitting snooze 16 times and then being late for work, rushing around, trying to get everything ready, and still speeding to work without ever feeding your body well or nourishing yourself, that is a stress. And often that stress is just gonna roll into all the other activities of the day. So maybe you sit down and you create a morning routine. You set your alarm for an hour earlier, you commit to waking up the first time, and you do activities that you love. It doesn't have to be exercise, but maybe you do enjoy a walk. Or maybe you just want to get up and read and journal. Maybe you want to get up and sip coffee with your husband, or whatever it is. Find something that's enjoyable, and the more enjoyable it is, the more things that you can add to that and really feel nourished based on that. So that's adding routine. So that's tip number 4. And tip number 5 is to find ways to de-stress your life. Because the reality is that we're women. We take on a lot and we have responsibility for so much. It is impossible to eliminate all stresses. Like, it's just not gonna happen. In fact, we don't even have to eliminate any stressors to experience stress in a different way. So stress oftentimes is how we mentally look at things. If we look at them as stressful and overwhelming, they are automatically going to get signaled as that in the body. It has to do with the subconscious and unconscious mind and what our view of reality is. But if we start thinking differently about these things, if we start thinking differently about meal planning and all these other things that stress us out, and instead of becoming something that we feel obligated to do or think that we have to do, what if they become things that we get to do, that we want to do? I mean, there's simple mental changes that we can do and implement into our life that takes what was once a stressor and turns it into just a normal everyday life occurrence that has no hormonal repercussions to it. So it is a mental thing, but even more than that is incorporating different stress relieving practices into your everyday can be so beneficial. So what am I talking about? Maybe it's reading a good book at the end of the day instead of surfing the internet. Maybe it's, like I said, waking up for your morning routine, or maybe it's taking your walking shoes to work and just going on a quick walk around town after work to kind of help your body to de-stress and vent off all the worries of the day so you can just step into rest and relaxation at night. Maybe it's taking a warm bath at the end of the day. I mean, it doesn't have to be bath bombs and rose petals. It can simply be just a warm bath. Maybe some of your kids soaked, add a little bit of bubbles. But really, that's all it takes. It's just something that you can do to kind of take that deep breath, step back, and know that it's all gonna be okay.